So can we start?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Salika Prabhu. Aye.
You can't, can you hear Prabhupada chanting?
No.
What of now?
No.
What happened? Okay. Okay, I will have to set that afterwards, but we can start.
All right. Om Gyana Tamredasya Gyanan Ganashalakaya Chakshuram Litam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Mano Bistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yukta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunastam Vitam Tam Sanjivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitamsya Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Iti Namine Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Asri Tatmane Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tetariti Namini Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvase Sasuyavadi Pasachade Satarini Vanchakalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Ivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adipurvaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum lagayate grim yat kripatamahad vande Shri Guru Dina Taranam Paramanam Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Akanda Mandala Karam Vyaptayina Chara Charam Tatpadam Dashitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Narayana Namaskritya Naracha Vanarottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Chaya Mudirayat Nashtapraya Swabhadresu Nityam Bhagavatam Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So everyone is welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam discussion. And so we continue with our discussion on the third canto, 20th chapter, entitled Conversation Between Maitreya and Vidur. And we ended up on text 40 last week. And today we are beginning from text 41. So 41 says, Jagrihusta Vishritam Tam Jimbanakyam Tanum Prabhu Nidram Indriya Vikledo Yaya Bhuteshu Drishyate Yeno Chistam Darshayanti Yumandam Prachakshate. Translation is, the ghosts and hoblings took possession of the body thrown off in the form of yawning by Brahman and the creator of the living entities. This is also known as the sleep, which causes drooling. The hobgoblins and ghosts attack men who are impure, and their attack is spoken of as insanity. The slide says, the disease of insanity or being haunted by ghosts takes place in an unclean state of existence. Here it is clearly stated that when a man is fast asleep and saliva flows from his mouth, he remains unclean. Ghosts then take advantage of this unclean state and haunt his body. In other words, those who drool while sleeping are considered unclean and are subject to be haunted by ghosts or to go insane. So, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur explains that sleep is a contamination. Though everybody loves sleep, but it is considered a contamination. And that is why when we rise from bed, the first thing we have to do is to take a bath. Because sleeping is considered a contamination, you must purify yourself by taking a bath. And of course, there are different degrees of that contamination. Generally, when we sleep, our senses produce liquids. And that is why when we wake up, we see there are some things coming out of the eyes. Sometimes some things are coming out of the ears. Sometimes our noses are blocked with flames. And sometimes there is drooling. Saliva is coming out of the mouth. So all these are indications of contamination. Therefore, when a devotee wakes up in the morning, the first thing to do is to clean all these orifices, all these gates, all these 9 gates have to be cleaned as soon as we wake up from bed. So we go to the toilet, we ease ourselves, we evacuate the bladder, evacuate the colon, the big intestine. We wash our mouth, we blow our nose, we wash our eyes, we clean our ears. So this is the Vaishnava tradition, that as soon as you wake up from bed, the first business is to clean the body, because the body is considered contaminated by all of these different liquids coming out of the body. The Bengali proverb says, Muchihaya, Suchihaya, Tyaje, Suchihaya, Suchihaya, Vidyahaya, Bhaje. That Suchi means cleanliness, and Muchi means dirtiness. The devotee or the Brahmana, his quality is cleanliness. The devotee, his lifestyle is a lifestyle of cleanliness. The environment is clean, the body is clean, his habits are clean, his thoughts are clean, his life is clean. That is the Vaishnava way of living. Everything about a Vaishnava is clean. So therefore, it's called Suchi. But one who is not a devotee, who is not practicing Vaishnava etiquette, Vaishnava culture, he's called Muchi. Muchi means unclean. His lifestyle is unclean. His habits are unclean. His heart is unclean. His mind is unclean. Everything about him is Muchi. So a cobbler is described as Muchi, and a Brahmana is described as Suchi. And Brahmana is clean by his habits, and a cobbler is dirty by his habits. So a devotee must be a Suchi. A devotee must live like a Brahmana, not like a Muchi. So here, the advanced stage of this Muchi, the advanced stage of this uncleanliness is drooling. When there is drooling in sleep, when saliva is pouring from our mouth while we sleep, that is a very serious situation. And that will attract ghosts and spirits. And normally when such persons are haunted by ghosts and spirits, they become mad. Their way of reasoning, their way of activities is influenced by these ghosts and spirits. So one becomes insane. So most of the mad people we see on the streets, they have actually gone through this drooling. And as a result, they have been possessed by ghosts and spirits. And you normally see mad people are very dirty. They are very dirty because that is these ghosts and spirits, they operate in such environments of dirtiness. So it is important for us to keep our bodies clean, keep our environments clean, keep our hearts clean, keep our minds clean, keep our habits clean. Then we can attract Krishna, we can attract Srimati Radharani, we can attract Lakshmi. And it's a practical experience. When you keep your environment clean, it attracts auspiciousness. It attracts all kinds of wonderful things. And if you keep your environment very dirty, it also attracts all kinds of inauspicious situations. So, we have to keep our environment clean. Keep ourselves clean so that we don't attract all these ghosts and spirits. Text 42 says, Urjaswantam manyamama admanam bhagavan ajaha sadhyam ganam priti ganam parokshena srijati prabhu. The translation is, recognizing himself to be full of desire and energy, the worshipful Brahma, the creator of the living entities, evolved from his own invisible form, from his navel, the host of Sadhyas and Pitas. The purport is brief. It says the Sadhyas and Pitas are invisible forms of departed souls, and they are also created by Brahma. We don't have anything on the slide. So, but Sadhyas and Pitas are the level of existence that are taken by departed souls. Sometimes we put them in the category of ghosts, but actually ghosts are different from Sadhyas and Pitas. One who has not performed any sinful activity or very gross sinful activities, one who follows certain principles in life. When he lived this world, he joined the Sadhyas and he joined the Pittas. He doesn't have to become a ghost. Ghosts are actually cursed living entities. For one reason, they have misbehaved, and so they cannot attend to this Sadhya or Pitta's planets. And so they have to roam around as ghosts. And it's said to be very, very painful, very disturbing for the soul to be in the form of a ghost. So Brahma created the Sadhyas and the Pittas from his own navel. It's interesting, Brahma came from the navel of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. So Brahma is linked to Garbhodakashayi Vishnu via the medium of the lotus flower, Hiranyangarbha. And here we also see that these living entities called Sadhyas or Pittas, they also came from Brahma's navel. So they're also connected to Brahma through the navel. And of course, we see that every living entity, especially mammals, they are connected to their mother through the umbilical cord, which comes from the navel. So our connection to our source is through, especially those of us in the material world, Nitya Baddhas, is through the navel of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, the Hiranyangarbha. So it shouldn't surprise us to hear that Brahma created the Sadhyas and the Pittas from his own navel. Others were created from the buttocks, others were created from his laziness, others were created from his mind, some created from between his eyebrows, some created from his arms. So different parts of Brahma is creating. But here, the Sadhyas and the Pittas are created from the navels. So that means they are of a very important group. And I think from this point, we see that creation of Brahma is improving. Brahma's creation is improving. So we go to text 43. 43 says that Adma Sargam Tam Kayam Pitara Prati Pejire Sadye Biascha Priti Biascha Kavayo Yarvitan Vate. Somebody like to read the translation and the slide?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Go ahead and read.
The Pittas themselves took possession of the invisible body, the source of their existence. It is through the medium of this invisible body that those well-versed in rituals offer oblations to Siddhas and Pittas in the form of their departed ancestors on the occasion of Shraddha.
Okay, the slide.
The performance of Shraddha or offering oblations with prasada is still current in India, especially at Gaya, where oblations are offered at the lotus feet of Vishnu in a celebrated temple. Because the Lord is thus pleased with the devotional service of the descendants, by his grace, he liberates the condemned souls of forefathers who do not have gross bodies, and he favors them to again receive a gross body for the development of spiritual advancements. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. So Shraddha ceremony is very, very important for the non-devotees because one who has not attained perfection in spiritual activities, he needs a gross body in order to engage the senses in the service of the Lord. And so by offering Shraddha to the departed souls, the living entities are given a chance to get gross bodies. That is the purpose of Shraddha ceremony. When they are offered Vishnu Prasadam, they are liberated from that subtle situation, and they are given a chance to take to Krishna consciousness or to advance on the path of spiritual realization. So here it is said that there's a particular place in India, it's called Gayapura, where these ceremonies are performed to award the departed souls physical bodies by which they can engage in Krishna consciousness. So this is important for those who are not devotees. But those who are devotees, they do not need to perform this Shraddha ceremony. However, we see that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is not different from Krishna himself, he went to Gaya to perform this Shraddha ceremony for his father, Jagannath Mishra. So the question may come up that if Shraddha ceremony is not important for devotees, then why does Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Lord himself, why does he go to Gaya to perform this activity? So the answer is that actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not go to Gaya because of this Shraddha ceremony, because his father was already liberated. Jagannath Mishra is a pure devotee of the Lord, and by his devotional service, he begot a great son like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So there is no question of performing Shraddha ceremony to give him another opportunity. Jagannath Mishra and Sachit Mata, they are eternal servants of the Lord. They only appear in this world to facilitate the appearance of the Lord. And so they don't need that Shraddha ceremony. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to meet his spiritual master, Ishwarapuri. And so, under the guise of performing Shraddha ceremony, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Gaya. But it is described in the Chaitanya Bhagavat that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met Ishwarapuri, he confessed his reason for coming to Gaya. He invited Ishwarapuri to where he was staying and personally cooked food for Ishwarapuri. And he took Diksha, he took shelter of him. And then he said, my purpose of coming to Gaya is actually to receive Diksha from you. So by this statement, we can understand that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not actually need to go to Gaya to perform this Shraddha ceremony for his father, but he used that as an excuse to go to Gaya because he knew that Ishwarapuri was residing in Gaya at that time. And the only way to meet him, to take the mantra, to get initiated, is to go to Gaya. So he told the people of Navadvip that since his father has passed away, he has to go to Gaya to perform the Shraddha ceremony. But his actual goal was different. So, just like the case of Hiranyakashipu, when Prahlad Maharaj was praying to Lord Nrsimhadev to deliver his father from the hellish planet because of his sinful activities, Nrsimhadev said, your father is already delivered because of your devotional service. So, devotees, especially if we are performing such great devotional service, intense devotional service, there is no need for this Shraddha ceremony. Only the karma candidates, those who are not directly engaged in pure devotional service, they have to perform this Shraddha ceremony for their departed parents to enable them obtain gross bodies to again get a chance to engage in Krishna consciousness. So that is the importance of bhakti. Bhakti is under the care of Radharani. Bhakti is meant for pleasing Krishna. And when Krishna is pleased, everything becomes possible. So,
Madhava Prabhu, please mute.
So any question or comment before we proceed? A devotee of the Lord does not perform such ritualistic ceremonies as Shraddha because he is pleasing the Supreme Lord. Therefore, his fathers and ancestors in difficulty are automatically relieved by the Lord. Prahlad Maharaj was assured by Lord Nrsimhadev that 14 generations of his ancestors will be delivered because of his devotional service. Therefore, the conclusion is Krishna consciousness is the sum total of all good work for family, for society, for all living beings. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that a person fully conversant with Krishna consciousness does not perform any rituals because he knows that simply by serving Krishna in full Krishna consciousness, all rituals are automatically performed. So by the single stroke of pure devotional service, all rituals are performed. So that is the potency, that is the power of devotional service. If there is no comment, we move on to text 44.
Hare Krishna.
Yes. Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Please accept my humble business, your demonstrator suite.
Yeah, well, yeah, Hare Krishna. I say my humble obeisances also.
Okay, Maharaj, please, for the devotee who needs not to perform this Shraddha ceremony, the emphasis is made on one who is serving Krishna in full Krishna consciousness. But here, practically, in our situation, sometimes we are not also sure of ourselves in the practicing full Krishna consciousness, because we are hunted by the desire to search for money, to do so many things and all those things. So, in that wise, where is our stand?
Well, I will say that we should, our meditation, our plan should be to increase our loving activities towards the Lord, to increase the intensity of our devotional service. That should be the plan. Our plan should be to take more shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the chanting of the holy name, through the hearing process. So, because that's the ultimate. Anything else will bring us back to this world. So, as Lord Sringadev tells Prahlad, that because of his devotional service, 14 generations of his ancestors will benefit. So this is very wonderful. Even if you become the richest man on the planet Earth, your grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-great-grandfather that have passed away, they cannot benefit from your wealth. They cannot. But if you perform very intense devotional service, 14 generations, that means 7 before you and 7 after you will benefit from your devotional service. Somewhere, some places, it says 100 generations. I've come across 100 generations before you, 100 generations after you will benefit from your devotional service.
In the Ekadasi book?
That's right. So you see that devotional service is much more valuable than anything else. So we should intensify our practice, intensify our devotional activities so that we can get this special benediction from Krishna that will benefit so many generations in our family. So that is what I would say. Of course, for those who are still not closer to the mark, they may still have to perform this ceremony because they want to get physical bodies. But it is said that one who has taken prashadam, the human form of life is already guaranteed. One who has eaten prashadam, the human form of life is guaranteed. So that means that Shraddha has already been performed. Anyone who has taken Krishna prashadam, Shraddha ceremony has already been performed. Because in the next life, it is a guarantee that he's going to get a human form of life and continue devotional service. So even if one is not on that top level of pure devotional service, whereby his generations of his family can benefit, but the mere fact that we are taking Krishna prashadam, we already have the qualification to have human forms in order to continue with our devotional service. So there is still some hope by associating with devotees, taking prasadam, chanting the holy name. So there is hope that we don't have to remain as ghosts. Maybe for our parents who didn't have the chance to eat prasadam, who didn't have the chance to render devotional service, who didn't have the chance to hear the holy name. And because we have not yet come up to the mark of pure devotional service, we may still have to perform the Shraddha ceremony for them. And actually, this year, when we went on Ganga Safari to Gaya, about 15 devotees, we all did Shraddha ceremony for our parents. Yeah, we did Shraddha ceremony for our parents.
Wow.
Yeah, we did. All of us. Even sannyasis and so on, we all did Shraddha ceremony for our parents who have departed. Like that, because they didn't have the chance to take prasadam, they didn't have the chance to associate with devotees, so we did Shraddha ceremony for them. So that is there. But for us who have taken prasadam, that ceremony is already performed. Is that okay? Hare Krishna. Any other comment?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
I wanted to ask a question in relation to the question that Sevan Prabhu has asked, but I think I'll leave that at that. The other question I wanted to ask is, when we started the class, we were talking about cleanliness, and which led to this particular verse.
Yeah.
And talking about waking up first thing in the morning, taking bath and all of, and before starting our daily meditation, chanting and all of that.
Yeah.
But what is your opinion about chanting rounds before taking bath in the morning?
Yes, I've seen that being practiced by some senior devotees. As soon as they just wake up, they will paste or they'll wash their mouth and they'll start chanting. I've seen that. So the understanding is that chanting is transcendental. And if one wakes up with the bliss of chanting, one wakes up with the bliss of Krishna consciousness, one wakes up experiencing joy in Krishna consciousness, we can understand that he is in a transcendental position. Even while sleeping, he is in that transcendental position. Sometimes we dream, and we dream of devotees, we dream of practicing Krishna consciousness, we dream of so many wonderful things in our sleep. So that is understood that we are connected to Krishna consciousness even in our sleeping state. So therefore, such souls cannot be considered to be under the influence of this muchi, this death, because even in their sleep, they were dreaming of Krishna consciousness, they were chanting in their sleep, they were experiencing some joy in Krishna consciousness in their sleep. So such devotees, we cannot consider them contaminated by the liquids that come out of their orifices or their holes, the 9 gates. So chanting on rising from birth is not condemned because it's considered transcendental. And if one wakes up with the joy of Krishna consciousness, one wakes up with the joy of chanting, he can chant without bathing. In fact, the Goswamis and great devotees, sometimes they don't even bath. Avadutas, they don't even bath but they are clean. They are in high consciousness. There is no question of sleep in their lives because they're connected to Krishna 24 hours a day. So in such a situation, external cleanliness doesn't really matter. External cleanliness may be important for us as neophytes, but for the very advanced souls, there is no question of internal and external cleanliness. They're always clean, they're always pure, suchi. So if a devotee wakes up in the morning and is feeling the desire to chant, he's feeling the bliss of chanting, and he takes to chanting, there is no offense.
Thank you.
All right.
Maharaj,
Yes.
please, thank you very much for this insight. And I thank Salika Prabhu for this particular question. It has elucidated a lot in my mind. But Maharaj, I would like you to extend the answer to the Gayatri for us. Because sometimes when the sadhyas are passing, and then one has not yet taken his bath, can he chant the Gayatri mantra?
Well, for the Gayatri mantra, what I understand is that, or what I've heard is that one should take a bath before chanting Gayatri. And in fact, we see in the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he will always take a noon bath in order to chant his Gayatri. In fact, sannyasis are supposed to bath 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, evening, before chanting Gayatri. And Lord Chaitanya demonstrated that. He will not chant his Gayatri without taking a bath. So for Gayatri mantra, it's a prerequisite that it should be chanted in a clean environment. So bathing is important. The Hare Krishna mantra actually is said to be superior to the Gayatri mantra. Yeah. One can go back home, back to Godhead, just by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. You don't really need a second initiation to go back home, back to Godhead. So the Hare Krishna mantra, Prabhupada says, contains all the mantras of the Vedas. The Hare Krishna mantra contains the Gayatri mantra, but it is also required that second initiates should chant the Gayatri 3 times a day, because it is a worship of the Sun, it is a worship of the Supreme, it is the worship of the energies of the Lord, and it helps us connect with divine energy. So for Gayatri, it's recommended that we should take a bath before we chant. And sannyasis, because of that, the sannyasis are supposed to bath 3 times a day before chanting their Gayatris. But again, if you talk about the Avadutas, they are above all these rules and regulations. Like Vamsi Das Babaji, like Norakishore Das Babaji, they were not following all these regulations. It is even said that Vamsi Das, Norakishore Das Babaji used to chant in the toilet because he didn't want materialistic people to come and bother him. So as soon as he wake up in the morning, he would just go and hide in the toilet. He will chant his japa there, so nobody comes there and trouble him. So they are transcendental. He can chant in the toilet, we cannot chant in the toilet.
Yes.
Yeah. He is not even smelling the toilet. He doesn't even see that it's toilet. He is seeing beyond. So we can imitate them. And like Vamsi Das Babaji Maharaj, he was such a transcendentalist that he would do opposite things. But Krishna used to talk to him. He had his deities. He said in the middle of the night, Hamsidas Babaji would offer things to the deities in the middle of the night. Hamsidas Babaji would wake up his deities in the middle of the night. Babaji would just do all kinds of things that is not authorized. But he was on the Raganuga platform. Somebody who is on the Raganuga platform is no more limited by rules and regulations at all. I think I was telling one story, maybe not on this platform, of a lady in Jagannath Puri. She used to cook khichiris for Lord Jagannath, but she does not bath when she wakes up, because Lord Jagannath has to eat early in the morning at a particular time. So when she wakes up, she does not bath, and she does not, and normally in India, they will use clay to polish the cooking place, the stove, because they use 3 pots. They use 3 stones. And they will polish it with clay every morning before they cook. So this lady does not do all that. He just gets up, pick his pot, and start cooking without bathing. So one saintly man came to Puri and observed it, because he was living nearby where the lady was. He observed this. So she went to the lady and said, "Hey, you lady, you are doing the wrong thing. How can you not bath before cooking? How can you not clean your cooking place, polish your cooking place before cooking? Lord Jagannath will not accept this food. Stop it. Take a bath, clean the place, clean your cooking area, wash your pots, do this, do that, follow rules and regulations." So the lady, because he's a saintly person, he decided to follow that instruction. But what happened? Lord Jagannath was waiting for the khichiri. It was time to eat, and khichiri didn't come. Lord Jagannath ran to the lady's house and saw that the khichiri was still unready. Jagannath went back to the temple. He couldn't wait. He came back again. The food wasn't ready. So finally, the food was ready, and Jagannath was eating when it was time for him to accept the offering on the altar. So Lord Jagannath ran back to the altar, and there was some khichiri on his lips. You know, he ate in a hurry. So there was some khichiri on his lips. And so the pujaris, they observed that Lord Jagannath had some drops of food, khichiri, on his lips. So they were wondering, where did Lord Jagannath get this from? Nobody has offered him anything this morning. So they went to complain to the king. And normally when there is some unusual happenings, they have to report to the king. So they reported to the king that this morning they saw some khichiri, some drop of khichiri on Jagannath's lips when they went to offer the boga. And they done is a sign of inauspiciousness. Where does it come from? And so when the complaint is made to the king, Jagannath will explain. In a dream, Jagannath will come and explain why that thing happened. So that night, Lord Jagannath came to the king and said, "Hey, my dear Raja, there is some saintly person who is disturbing my service. This lady who is cooking khichiris for me, he doesn't need to bath. He doesn't need to polish his kitchen. He's on a Vaibhava platform. He's Raganuga platform. Everything he does is spiritual. But this saintly man doesn't understand. He's correcting him, telling him what to do. And because of that, my khichiri was late. I had to eat it hurriedly and run back to the temple in order to accept what was offering to me on the altar. And so there was a drop of khichiri on my lips, and the pujari saw. So they should go and tell that saintly person. He should go and apologize to the lady. He should not instruct her. She's above rules and regulations." So immediately the pujaris, they went to look for the saintly man. They chastised him, and they told him that he was doing the wrong thing. So they all went to the lady And he apologized to a lady. He said, "Oh, my dear Mataji, I didn't know you are on such an exalted Vaishnav. You are on a platform of Bhava, and everything of yours is spiritual. I was looking at you from the Vaidhi or Vaidhi platform of rules and regulations. So please forgive me. Resume your service as usual." So the lady resumed her service. She wakes up from bed. Immediately she starts cooking. He offered Lord Jagannath his khichdi. And Baladev and Jagannath, they will come to the lady's house to take the prasadam before they go and accept the offering on the altar. So they'll come early, eat the khichdi from this lady, then they go back to the altar and accept whatever offering is being given to them. So there are devotees who are on this platform, and so these rules and regulations do not apply. But for us who are sadhakas, we need to follow the rules and regulations. When we come to the level of Raganuga, then there are no more rules and regulations. Of course, it's even said that the Raganuga devotees, because they are to teach, they still follow these rules and regulations just to set an example for the sadhakas to follow. So like Srila Prabhupada, there was no need for him to follow all these rules and regulations, but he did, because as a spiritual master, he had to set an example. Otherwise, people will follow the wrong example. So Prabhupada, even though there was no need to follow all these rules and regulations, but he did. It is mentioned in his pastime once, a Mataji was making kachoris for Prabhupada in the kitchen. And Prabhupada went into the kitchen, and then he picked up one kachori and threw it into his mouth. And the disciple is telling Prabhupada, but Prabhupada is not offered, it's not offered. And Prabhupada said, "Man, who are you cooking for?" And the disciple said, "We are cooking for you, Guru Maharaj." He said, "So I've accepted it, what is your problem?" But he didn't understand. He was saying, "Oh, it's not offered, it's not offered." But actually, we offer our food through the spiritual master. So Prabhupada has accepted the service of the disciple by taking one kachori and throwing it into the mouth, means offered. There's no need for taking it to the altar again, it's offered. So these things are there for the sadhakas, for the raganugas. There are different levels of activities. So I don't know, have I answered your question, or I'm digressed to something else?
No, it's perfect. We are perfectly on course.
Hare Krishna. So we can move to text 44. The 44 says, Siddhan Vyadhya Dharams Chaiva Tiro Danena So Sriyat Tebyo Dadatam Atmanam Antadhanakyam Adbhutam. Then Lord Brahma, by his ability to be hidden from vision, created the Siddhas and the Vidyadharas and gave them that wonderful form of his known as Antadhana. As one line purport. Antadhana means that these living creatures can be perceived to be present, but they cannot be seen by vision. So as I said, from the sadhyas and pitas, there is a continuous improvement. Brahma is improving his creation. The living entities from the pitas and sadhyas are becoming more and more qualified, more and more advanced. So the next creation are the Siddhas and the Vidyadharas. And Lord Brahma empowered them with his own wonderful form, which is called Antadhana. Antardana means becoming invisible. Even though you are present, people can see you. Antardana. That is the name of one of the sons of Prithu Maharaj. Vijitaswa. Vijitaswa is Prithu's senior son. When Vijitaswa was to accost Indra for stealing Prithu's 100th horse, Prithu was performing the 100 horse sacrifices. And Indra did not want Prithu to come to the same level with him because Indra is known as Satakrato. Satakrato means the performer of 100 horse sacrifices. Sata means 100. Satakrato is the performer of 100 horse sacrifices. So when Prithu Maharaj was also performing his 100 horse sacrifices, he performed up to 199. And Indra would not allow him to do the 100 horse sacrifices. He constantly disguised himself as a sadhu and disguised himself in different forms and came stealing the horse. But there was one sage who was seeing Indra doing this, so he reported the matter to Vijitaswa, the senior son of Prithu Maharaj. And so Vijitaswa would pursue Indra, and Indra will release the horse. And then he will bring it back to the father. But before they will start the yagi again, Indra has stolen the horse. So it happened 3 times or 4 times. But Vijitaswa was respecting Indra because he saw him in sannyas clothes. He saw him in sadhu vesha. So he was respecting him. He did not want to attack a sadhu with his arrows. So it is said that because Vijitaswa did not attack Indra, Indra awarded him this Antardana. Indra awarded him this invisibility. So his name changed from Vijitaswa to Antardana. So you come across it in the 4th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, when you treat the Prithu Maharaj's unit. So Antardana means that even though you are present, but people cannot see you. It is also common in African tradition. People appear and disappear at their will, and you can see them. It is there. It's a Vedic practice. It is part of the yoga siddhis, actually. So the Siddhas and the Vidyadharas, they were given that ability by Brahma.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Persons with Antardana form, can they be heard if they speak? Even though we don't see them, can we hear them?
Yes, you can hear them, but you can't see them. Of course, they can also become visible if they want to be seen. They can become visible if they want to be seen. But if they don't want to be seen, you can't see them. They become invisible even though they are present. And when they speak and they make some noise, you can hear them. You can know that they are around, but you can't see them physically. You can't see them by your vision. So Maharaj Vijitaswa was awarded the mystic power of Antardana by Indra when he did not punish Indra for stealing his father's sacrificial horse. And his name was changed from Vijitaswa to Antardana. So
Maharaj, what is the difference in this Antardana of the the body Chota Haridas, after he committed offense, and then he committed suicide, and now come in a ghostly body to sing for Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya was hearing.
Yeah, that's right. So Lord Chaitanya was hearing, not only Lord Chaitanya, other devotees were also hearing his singing. Yeah, so he was in a ghostly form because he committed suicide, but he was a ghostly devotee. He had a desire to glorify Lord Chaitanya, so he will come and sing for Lord Chaitanya to hear. But after a while, he did not. He was delivered. Yeah, after a while, it was not continuous. After when he committed suicide, for some time, he was around, always coming to glorify the Lord. But after some time, he was delivered. Lord Chaitanya delivered him. So it's possible that you can hear the singing of such antadanas. You can hear their vibrations, but you cannot see them because they have the ability to hide from the vision of everyone. It's a mystic power, actually. Now, in the case of Haridas, we can say that Lord Chaitanya, because he used him as Lord Chaitanya used him as a lesson for his sannyasi disciples. Yeah, that pastime was actually inspired by Lord Chaitanya because he wanted to teach his sannyasi disciples that once you take the sannyas order, you don't have to intimately relate with the opposite sex. So we can understand that Lord Chaitanya used him, but he also delivered him. Yeah. Okay, so we can move on. Text 45 has no purport, but we'll read it. It says, Sa kinaram kim purusham praktya miyana shrijat prabhu manayam atmana manam admad basham vilokayam. One day, Brahma, the creator of the living entities, beheld his own reflection in the water, and admiring himself, he evolved king Purushas as well as Kinnaras out of that reflection. So, as we said, Brahma's creation is improving. The living entities Brahma is creating now, they are becoming advanced, more and more advanced. So the king Purushas and the Kinnaras, they are said to be the reflection of Brahma. When Brahma saw his own reflection in the water, he was admiring that form. And from the admiration of that form, the king Purushas and the Kinnaras were created. So that means the Kinnaras and king Purushas are even superior to the Sadhyas and Siddhyas. So we'll go to the next verse. There's no paper here. 46. 46 says, Te tu touch jagru rupam tyaktam yat pramastina mituni bhuya gayantas tam ivo shashi karmabir. Somebody like to read a translation and purport and the slide?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Go ahead and read.
The king Purushas and Kinnaras took possession of that shadowy form which was left by Brahma. That is why they and their spouses sing his praises by recounting his exploits at every daybreak. This slide.
Yeah.
The importance of Brahma Muhurta. The time early in the morning, 1.5 hours before sunrise, is called Brahma Muhurta. During this Brahma Muhurta, spiritual activities are recommended. Spiritual activities performed early in the morning have a greater effect than in any other part of the day. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So the king Purushas and Kinnaras took possession of that shadowy form left by Brahma. And they and their spouses sings his praises by recounting his exploits at every day break. So singing the praises of exalted personalities, singing the praises of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, singing the praises of the resident of the spiritual world, singing the praises of the pastimes of the Lord during the Brahma Muhurta hour has such great spiritual effect. So Brahma Muhurta is the best hour for spiritual practices because spiritual activities performed during that period gives a greater benefit and has a greater effect than the same thing performed during other times of the day. So Brahma Muhurta is important for a sadhaka, for a practitioner of Krishna consciousness. If we really want to make progress, the early morning hours of the day must not be utilized for sleeping. And in fact, we see that devotees who rise early in the morning to chant their rounds, who rise early in the morning to study their scriptures, who rise early in the morning to perform spiritual duties, such devotees will make advancement. The example is our own Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Swami Maharaj. Bhakti Charu Maharaj told us in one of his Vyas Puja celebrations, Bhakti Maharaj's Vyas Puja celebrations, he told us he became attracted to Bhakti Maharaj in 1976 when he was a servant of Srila Prabhupada. He was a personal servant of Prabhupada and cook for Prabhupada. So at 1 a.m., Bhakti Maharaj will start chanting his rounds in Mayapur when they gather for the yearly Guru Punim festival. So he would hear somebody chanting at the top of the long building, Chakra building. It happened 2 or 3 times, 1 a.m. So he decided to find out who is that person chanting at this hour. And so he went there and he saw that it was Ganesham Prabhu. That was our Guru Maharaj's Brahmachari name. It was Ganesham Prabhu chanting. So he approached him and said, Ganesham, why are you chanting at this hour of the day? At least, why don't you wait till about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock? And Ganesham said, my dear Bhakti Charu, see, You are fortunate you've taken birth as a Bengali. You have taken birth amongst Mahaprabhu's tribe. That's your great fortune. So you don't need to make much effort to make advancement. But for me, I've taken birth in the Western world, degraded cultures. So I need to put in some extra effort in order to get the mercy of the Lord. So I rise up early so that I can chant enough rounds before Mangarati. I have a quota of rounds I chant every day. And so I need to get up early to cover the quota. So Maharaj, Bhakti Maharaj would rise at 1 a.m. and chant his rounds. And because of that, he became very advanced in Krishna consciousness. So any devotee who is rising early in the morning to chant his rounds definitely would make advancement, especially during the Brahma Muhurta hour. Sometimes it is said it begins at 3 o'clock, 2 hours before the sunrise, but they say it can be extended backwards. Right after 12 midnight, by 1 o'clock, one can start chanting his rounds. So here the emphasis is performing Bhakti, devotional service, during Brahma Muhurta. So the King Purushas and the Kinnaras, they sing the glories of Lord Brahma during the early hours of the day, which is Brahma Muhurta, and therefore here Prabhupada is saying that we should take advantage of this Brahma Muhurta hour.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Please, Brahma Muhurta, is it 4:30 or when is it precisely?
The description is it should be 2 hours before sunrise. So if the sun rises at say 6 o'clock, so it should be around 3:30, between 3:30, right? 4 o'clock to 6 is 2 hours. So 3:30, from 3:30 to 6 is Brahma Muhurta. No, sometimes people say 4 o'clock, some people say 4:30, but it says specifically 2 hours before sunrise. So depending on what time the sun rises in your location, if the sun rises at 6:30, then 4 o'clock Brahma Muhurta starts. If it is rising at 6 o'clock, then 3:30 Brahma Muhurta starts. If it is rising at 5:30 in your place, then by 3 o'clock, then Brahma Muhurta starts, 2 hours before sunrise.
Thank you very much, Maharaj.
So we move on to text 47. 47 says, Dehina Vaibhava Sayano Bahu Chintaya Sarge nu Pachite Krodat Usarajahatat Vapur. Once Brahma lay down with his body stretched at full length, he was very concerned that the work of creation had not proceeded apace. And in a sullen mood, he gave up that body too. That is 47. In 48, it says that Ye hiyanta muta kesha ahayaste inga jagnire sarpa prashapata kuraha nagaboguru kandaraha. Oh Vidura, oh dear Vidura, the hair that dropped from that body transformed into snakes. And even while the body crawled along with his hands and feet contracted, there sprang from it ferocious serpents and nagas with their hoods expanded. Text 49. Says, Sa admanam manya manaha krita krityam ivad mabur tada manum sarsa jante manasaloka bhavanam. One day, Brahma, the self-born, the first living creature, fell as if the object of his life had been accomplished. At that time, he evolved from his mind the Manus who promote the welfare activities of the universe. And text 50 says, Tebyaso srijatsriyam puram purusham atmavam tandrishtyaye purashrishtaha prashasham su prajapatim. The self-possessed creator gave them his own human form. On seeing the Manus, those who had been created earlier, the demigods, the Gandharvas, and so on, applauded Brahma, the Lord of the universe. So if you look at 48, 49, now 47, it said one Brahman lay down with his body stretched at full length. He was very concerned that the work of creation had not proceeded apace. In a sullen mood, he gave up that body too. So at the stage, Brahma was feeling unsatisfied. He was feeling despondent. He was feeling unhappy that the creation of the universe and the living entities did not go the way he wanted. If you remember all the incidents that we have come across in this chapter, Brahma he went through a number of incidents. The yakshas and rakshasas wanting to eat him, wanting to kill him. Then the demons wanted to have sex with him, and so on. So he went through different experiences. So at this stage, even though he had just created the Kinnaras and the what do they call them? The Chanaras, Kim Purushas and Kinnaras. He had just created them, and they were more advanced. But Brahma was feeling dissatisfied. Brahma was feeling unhappy. So therefore, Brahma lay down and stretched his body. He was feeling unhappy. So in a sullen mood, in a very unhappy mood, Brahman lay down and stretched his body. And by stretching his body, the hairs of his body fell off. And those hairs that fell off became snakes. They turned into snakes. And that is how the snakes were created. They were created during Brahman's unhappy period, unhappy moment, when he lay down and stretched his body. So that is 47, 48. Then the serpents and nagas, they sprung from those hairs that dropped from Brahma's body. Then 49 and 50 is talking about the creation of man. 49 and 50 is talking about the creation of man. One day, Brahma, the self-born first living creature, fell as if the object of his life had been accomplished. So Brahma is going through changing moods. One moment he's feeling unhappy that he had not achieved his purpose. But the next moment, Brahma is feeling very happy. So when he was feeling unhappy, the serpents and nagas were created from the hair that dropped from his body. But then after that, Brahma is feeling very happy, thinking that his life has been accomplished. And so at that time, he evolved from his mind the Manus who promote the welfare activities of the universe. So in 50, it says, the self-possessed creator, that is Brahma, gave them his own human form. So the human form is Brahma's form. Of course, Brahma has 4 heads. We don't have 4 heads. So one may say, if Brahma gave us his form, why he didn't give us 4 heads? But the job Brahma has to do is different from the job we have to do. He has a different service. He has to think, he has to manage, he has to create. So he needs much more brain substance. He needs much more thinking than us. And so he was given 4 heads. But when Brahma created us, he gave us 1 head each. So but the body resembles Brahma. 2 hands, 2 legs, 1 head. And when Brahma created Manus, the beings that were created before, they applauded Brahma, they glorified Brahma, they praised Brahma for creating Manu, the human being, because the human being is going to perform sacrifice, and that sacrifice will benefit the entire creation. So the human life is actually meant for performing sacrifice. And by the performance of such sacrifice, the whole universe benefits. So the demigods are happy that at last Brahma had created this special species of living entities called human beings, and that they would promote the welfare of the universe. Now in text 51, it says, Aho eta jagat srasta sukritam batate kritam pratishtita kriya yasmin shakam anam adamahe. So somebody can read that?
All the living entities created by Brahma are conditioned souls and are inclined to lord it over material nature. The purpose of sacrificial ritual is to revive gradually the spiritual realization of the living entities. That is the beginning of life within the universe. These sacrificial rituals, however, are intended to please the Supreme Lord. Unless one pleases the Supreme Lord, or unless one is Krishna conscious, one cannot be happy, either in material enjoyment or in spiritual realization.
Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna. So the demigods, they praise Lord Brahma. O creator of the universe, we are glad what you have produced is well done. Since ritualistic acts have now been established soundly in this human form, we shall all share the sacrificial oblations. So the performance of sacrifice is very much highlighted here. And the responsibility of the human form is for this purpose of sacrifice. Therefore, it is said that in the beginning of creation, I think Bhagavad Gita 3:10, in the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures instructed the performance of sacrifice. And that by the performance of sacrifice, everyone benefits. So the human form is a fulfillment of the performance of sacrifice. So the demigods, they are so happy that at long last, these forms were created by Brahma. So the human form of life is a very special form. It's a very special form. Dulabo manasho deho, dehinam shana bangura. The human form of life is really, really achieved. Very, really achieved. Because it is specially designed for performing sacrifices and for associating with the saintly people. So by the performance of sacrifice, the whole universe benefits. Even the demigods, they benefit from sacrifices because they get their shares. And by associating with the saintly people, the servants of the Lord of Vaikuntha, one is liberated. So the human form of life has a dual purpose. It is meant for performing sacrifice for the benefit of the whole universe, and is also meant for associating with the exalted devotees of the Lord in order to attain liberation. And hence, the importance of the human form, which is being glorified by the demigods. In text 52, it says that tapasa vidyaya yukto yogena susamadina rishin rishir hirsikeshaha sasarja bimata prajaha. Somebody likes to read text 52?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, can I read?
Go ahead, Prabhu.
Yes, from the slide, right, Maharaj?
Read the translation first before the slide.
Okay, okay, Maharaj, 1 minute. Translation.
Yeah.
Having equipped himself with asture, penance, adoration, mental concoction, and absorption in devotion, accompanied by dispassion and having controlled his senses, Brahma and the self-born living creature evolved great sages as his beloved sons.
Okay, now read the slide.
Yes, Maharaj. Brahma created the sages who set the example for spiritual realization. What is the essential is Vidya, or worship of the Supreme Lord. Sometimes the word yoga is used to refer to the gymnastic performance of different bodily postures, which help mental concentration. Generally, the different bodily postures in the yoga system are accepted by less intelligent men to be the end of yoga, but actually they are meant to concentrate the mind upon the supersoul. After creating persons for economic development, Brahma created sages who would set the example for spiritual realization.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Happy to hear from you, speaking all the way from Bharatvass, from India.
Prabhuji, Maharaj, I'm still on the way. I've reached
That's not the
Dubai.
way. You haven't reached
Yes,
yet.
yes, Maharaj. No, Maharaj.
Wow.
Thank you.
You're in Dubai now.
Yes, Maharaj.
I see. Wonderful. Okay.
Yes.
You are close. You are close to Bharatvass. 4 hours,
Yes.
you are there.
Yes, Maharaj.
So anyway, so here, Brahma created the sages, and there was some preparation. So for Brahma to create such exalted personalities, he had to prepare. So it says here, having equipped himself with austere penance, with adoration, with mental concentration, with absorption in devotion, accompanied by dispassion, that means no passion. He gave up passion. And having controlled his senses, Brahma, the self-born living creature, involved great sages as his beloved sons. So, to create the sages, Brahma had to go the extra mile. He had to perform more austerity. He has to have mental discipline. He has to have absorption in devotion. He has to control his senses before he created the sages. And the sages, they are meant to set the standard for spiritual realization. So the state of consciousness before procreation is very important here again. Because Brahma wanted to create first-class human beings, first-class beings. He had to undergo such austerities, such concentration, such mind-sense control, such absorption in devotion. He had to go through all this in order to create the sages who would lead humanity in spiritual pursuits. So, the position of saintliness, to become a saintly person, is not that easy, is not that cheap. Titikshava karonika suhrida sarvadehinam. Kapila Muni is telling his mother, I think in this unit, we will come across that. The teachings of Kapila Muni to his mother. That to be a saintly person, one must be very, very tolerant. Titikshava. One has to be very merciful. Karonika. One has to become a friend of all living entities. Suhrida. Sarvadehinam. One must cultivate transcendental sublime qualities. Sadhu Bhushanam. So, because the saintly people are to set the example, they have to set the standards for spiritual realization. So, not only Brahma had to undergo such austerity to create them, but they also have to maintain a certain standard in order to show the way. So So he said, after Brahma had finished creating living entities that will bring about economic development by the performance of sacrifices, Brahma created the sages who would now bring about spiritual realization. So therefore, he had to prepare himself. So the position of the sages is very exalted. They're the most exalted in the universe. They're the topmost of Brahma's creation because Brahma had to perform great austerities, great penances, self-discipline, and so on before they were created. In 53, it says, Tebias chai kai kasha swasya dehasyam sam ada ajaha yatat samadhi yogardi tapo vidya viraktimat. To each one of these sons, the unborn creator of the universe gave a part of his own body, which was characterized by deep meditation, mental concentration, supernatural power, austerity, adoration, and renunciation. And the slide says, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that those who are too attached to seeking material possessions and material enjoyment cannot reach yoga samadhi, absorption in Krishna consciousness. Propaganda that one can enjoy this life materially at the same time spiritually advanced is simply bogus. The principle of renunciation are four. 1, to avoid illicit sex life. 2, to avoid meat eating. 3, to avoid intoxication. And 4, to avoid gambling. These 4 principles are called tapasya, austerity. To absorb the mind in the supreme, in Krishna consciousness, is the process of spiritual realization. And so that brings us to the end of the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 3rd canto, 20th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Conversation Between Maitreya and Vidura. So the sages, Brahma gave his own body, gave part of his own body to the sages, which was characterized by deep meditation, mental concentration, supernatural powers, austerity, adoration, and renunciation. This is what Brahma imparted to the sages. So these 7 sages, or sometimes 9 sages, they are not ordinary beings. They are the best of Brahma's creation, because Brahma gave part of his body. We shouldn't forget that Brahma's body came out of the Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. Brahma's body came out of the lotus flower, which came out of Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. So Brahma is directly related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so when Brahma gives part of his body to these sons of Brahma, the sages, we must understand that they are very exalted. And therefore, Brahma is empowering them by giving them part of his own body, which is made up of deep meditation, mental concentration, supernatural powers, austerity, adoration, and renunciation. So that brings us to the close of this chapter. The next chapter is entitled Conversation Between Manu and Kadarma. So if there are no comments, we would proceed to the next chapter.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, I have one reflections as we were reading this concluding verse of this chapter 20.
Okay.
For Lord Brahma to create he has had a lot of creations. But to create this particular quality set of human beings that will give direction and guide to the society at large. I was wondering why Lord Brahma didn't have to do this. That was first question is, he didn't do this by himself. He could probably, based on empowerment, probably Brahma could create such personalities, but then to do this, he involved. And that sounded instructive to me. And I was reflecting as we were reading that Lord Brahma did this for Prabhupada to bring so many souls together to bring what we know today as Krishna consciousness movement, the Hare Krishna movement. Even in our Western philosophy, our Western tradition, we look at the life of Christ, we look at the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace of Allah be upon him. These great personalities, they weren't able to, maybe they could, but they were not able to expand the scope of their mission without involving even some of the conditioned souls to work with them. And the Lord also never does anything alone. So I'm reflecting on all of this, vis-a-vis our development as a yatra. Could we say that the state of our yatra is as a result of lack of cooperation, or could it be some other factor?
And that's an interesting observation. And my answer is that, yes, one of our stumbling blocks, one of our challenges is this lack of cooperation. And Srila Prabhupada was aware that the Westerners, we generally fight among ourselves, argue among ourselves, we work against each other. And so when he was leaving the planet, he said that this movement can expand unlimitedly if two things are available: intelligently organizing the preaching and intelligently cooperating. So organization and cooperation is what will make this movement succeed unlimitedly. And in countries or zones where this cooperation is maximized, we can see greater expansions of the preaching. And in areas where there is no cooperation, we see stagnancy. So one of our challenges is lack of cooperation. And Prabhupada says that we can only demonstrate our love for him when we cooperate. So one may conclude that we don't really have love for Prabhupada, and that is why we are not in the mood of cooperation so that we can expand Prabhupada's movement unlimitedly. And what is the cause of lack of cooperation? We may find many other factors there also.
Thank you.
Yeah, due to lack of knowledge.
I was going to ask that as a follow-up question.
Yeah, due to lack of knowledge, proper knowledge of the scriptures, proper knowledge of Shastra, because knowledge is meant to enlighten us, to know what is to be done, what is not to be done. So lack of knowledge, that's one. Envy is another. So due to ignorance, people do all kinds of things. Due to ignorance, people don't behave well. Due to ignorance, people don't even know what is to be done, what is not to be done. So therefore, this program of Shastric study is an attempt to help us get out of this ignorance, avidya, which is contributing to this factor. Then envy, Srila Prabhupada says, generally the living entity who finds himself in the material world is envious. That is what brings us here. So we are all candidates of envy. And that is why we are here. If we are not envious, we will not be here in the material world. And our envy is towards Krishna. And that's why Krishna sends us here. So when we do not find Krishna to be envious of, we become envious of our neighbors. We become envious of our colleagues. We become envious of any living entity by us. So that it's a natural tendency because that brings us here. But the challenge is to become a devotee, to become a Vaishnava. You have to become Nirma Sharanam. Nirma Sharanam. That is a qualification of becoming a devotee. You become free from envy. So the problem or the cause of this lack of cooperation is avidya and masharanam. Somebody is talking.
That's from Shri Prem.
It's Yadunathan and his son that is playing pastime.
I see.
They should mute.
This envy and avidya, we are tackling it by studying the scripture, by organizing courses. So devotees, as devotees get more and more enlightened, more and more studying the scripture, naturally the envy will reduce. And
our ego is also a problem. We have ego in us.
All due to ignorance.
The ego.
Our ego.
That's
ego.
right. Yeah, it's ignorance now. That is a part of the ignorance. Then Brahma created the five different kinds of ignorances. Tamisra, under Tamisra, Moha, under Moha, and Tamas.
Those,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I will add this.
Okay, that's one problem, please. Sorry. I wanted to ask one follow-up question before we leave this matter. I absolutely agree with you, the explanation you give, and identifying ignorance as the cause of our challenges. And this ignorance are manifested in so many ways. So the solution is to become knowledgeable, to develop Gyan. But also Gyan, without becoming Gyan, also becomes a challenge because we seemingly know so many scriptural texts. We read so many scriptural texts. We hear so many scriptural texts. So my question, lead question to this is that, how do we develop a Gyan? I know you have mentioned that we need to read the scriptures, we need to hear the Bhagavatam, but we're hearing and we're not developing. So that aspect, I wanted you to a little bit broaden about it, how to develop Gyan or realize knowledge that will lead to proper behavior.
Harika Prabhu, please, Maharaj, excuse me. I want to intervene here quickly for a little point before you take Sarika Prabhu's question. At this juncture of our devotional service, I will plead with devotees and Maharaj, you can elucidate it more for us. In our presentations or our talking, we need to make clear difference between the ego and the false ego. Okay. Many times we mix up the distinction. When we say ego, to me, my little understanding is the real self. which is so pure from Krishna. But the scriptures term what we are applying here, which is drowning us at false ego.
Oh, yeah.
So, like Madhavan said, your question was right, but then when you say ego, then you are talking of the real self, which is as crystal clear and pure from Krishna. But it is the false
Ego.
aspect of it we are using here that is causing our problem.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's okay. That's true. There are two egos here. There's a real ego and a false ego. The real ego is our constitutional position. We are Jivera Swarupa Haya Krishna Nitya Das. That is our real ego. We are eternal servants of Krishna. But when that is missing, then we wear the dress of false ego. Ahankara. Yeah. So yeah, that should be differentiated. Anytime we address the issue of ego, we have to deal with false ego and real ego. Yeah. So coming back to Salika Prabhu's question of how to deal with this. Vigyan.
Yeah, to come to platform of Vigyan.
Vigyan. So the first level is of knowledge is Gyan. It is also necessary. The first level of knowledge is Gyan. Without Gyan, we cannot go to Vigyan. So we are at the moment we are doing the Gyan. We are studying the scriptures. We are discussing the scriptures so that we can gain Gyan. But as we gain the Gyan, that has to be transformed into Vigyan. It has to be transformed into Vigyan. That's the next stage. So how do we develop this Vigyan? Vigyan means realization, practical experience of the knowledge that we are acquiring. So to have practical experience of the knowledge that we are acquiring, it requires certain steps. And those steps, we are already practicing them, only we don't do it consciously. Sadhu Sangha, association with devotees, is very important because without the association of devotees, we cannot come to the platform of Vigyan. Krishna Kripa, Sadhu Sangha, Krishna Kripa. Without the mercy of Krishna, it is not possible. So we may have the devotee association as we are getting. We are associated with devotees. That is the first step. But the second step is to consciously pray to Krishna, consciously make the attempt. You see, this process of Krishna consciousness, it may appear to be very easy. It may appear to be very simple. but actually is deeper than we can understand, is deeper than we can perceive. So, because it's so deep, we cannot fathom, we cannot understand the depthness of Krishna consciousness. So we have to depend on the mercy of Guru, on the mercy of Krishna. So we have to pray. We have to pray for the mercy of Guru and Krishna to bring us to the next level of Vigyan. First is Gyan. We are accumulating Gyan by studying the scripture, by hearing the scripture. That is one level. That's the first level. Now we have to move from the level of Gyan to Vigyan. And how does that Vigyan come about? That Vigyan comes about by connection, by internal connection. We have to connect to the spiritual master. We have to connect to Krishna. And that happens by the process of prayer, vandanam. So if we see all the acharyas, if we see all the great devotees, they pray a lot. In fact, the song books we have, they are simply prayers of great acharyas, great devotees. So His Holiness Kavichandra Maharaj, he just left us this morning for Côte d'Ivoire. And when he arrived, he was promoting this vandanam. At the end of each class, he would sing a verse from the songbook. He did it for a few days, but he stopped. So that should be the practice. Either in class or outside of class, we have to begin to offer prayers. And that gives us our internal connection with the saintly people and with Krishna. Why is it that all these great devotees, even the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, is full of prayers? Full of prayers. So, to get to the level of Vigyan, we have to go beyond just accumulating knowledge. And that includes praying to the various acharyas, praying to the various incarnations, praying for the mercy of the Lord, Srimati Radharani, and liberated souls, as manifested by our previous acharyas and exalted devotees. That comes in the form of songs in the songbook. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote so many songs. Why was he doing so? That is his prayer. Srivas Acharya, that is his prayer. Narottam Das Thakur, that is his prayer. So all of these personalities, they are showing us their prayer. King Kulashekar, Mukundas Trutamalam, that is his prayer. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Shashastikam is his prayer. So we can come to the level of Vigyan by going a step further than just accumulating knowledge. So we have to pray. And if we don't have, we cannot coin our own prayers. We cannot create our own prayers. We just select some of the prayers of the acharyas and sing them, just as His Holiness Kavichandra Maharaj was doing in the early part of his visit. After every class, he will sing one song from the songbook. So those are the means, the steps we can take towards this Vigya, becoming practicalizing the knowledge, having experiences of the knowledge, tasting the knowledge, and then sharing the knowledge. So we have to sing bhajans, say prayers, coin prayers, offer prayers constantly. And through those prayers, we would actually link up with these personalities, and they would give us their mercy. They will share their mercy, and that will bring us to the mature platform of Vigya. Without that, it's not possible. I don't know whether I've answered your question.
Thank you very much. Elaborately answered. Thank you so much.
Well, so I think our time is up because I have some other things to do. That's why we brought a class earlier. I have some important function.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So
on this note, I request all of the devotees to please kindly unmute. Let us loudly chant loud Hare Krishna mantra to appreciate our teacher, His Grace Srivas Vanacari, for this wonderful class. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Hare
Rama, Hare Hare.
Vanchakarpatarubyas Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinde ki jai, Nitai Gora Premanande.
So tomorrow's class,
Vanachari Prabhu ki jai.
So tomorrow's class is as usual.